And so let's just sit up nice and tall and close the eyes. And just take a moment to breathe in and breathe out. Feel that you have arrived in this moment, at this time, in this place. As you breathe in with gratitude. And as you breathe out with generosity. As you breathe in, allow yourself to receive the creative inspiration of the universe. And as you breathe out, allow yourself to express your own creativity. As you breathe in, be alive and in service of your own awakening. And as you breathe out, be in service of all others. Placing the right hand on the heart and the left hand over the right. And together we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a nice breath in. Bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face back to center, release the eyes. Release the hands, flutter the eyes open. Don't release your eyes. Well, I guess you could release the eyes, couldn't you? Especially if we're gazing too strongly at something, you know. So today's talk is a subject that I've revisited continuously over many years now. And I first put it down into a format that I could share with others when Fort Monmouth in New Jersey closed. So, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago now, or thereabouts. Fort Monmouth was one of the largest employers in the Monmouth County area. And I think it was one of the largest bases, military bases, that there were. And I think it was like in the top 10 or top 15, somewhere along those lines. And the decision was made to close that base. And the employees that were there and the military personnel that were stationed there started having a really hard time because this was their life. So I don't know if any of you work on a military base. Does anybody in here work on a military base or is in the military? It's a very interesting culture because life revolves around that. Like I have very good friends who work there for 20, 30 years and their out of work activities as well as their job revolved around that community very, very heavily. And now that community was going to be disrupted and disbanded. And the base itself redesigned into something else. And so their community outreach coordinator contacted me and said, "Can you come in and talk?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I have the perfect subject. Radical rethinking." And she was like, "Oh, okay, that sounds interesting." And what it was about was how to picture your life outside of the normal limitations that you put on it. Now, these people I was, in the process of working with, they had daily regimens down. They understood their job. Many of them had been there, like I said, for a lifetime. They had the community there, and that was going to be wiped out. And now they were facing, in a few short months, a life that they had no idea what it was going to look like. And so in working to support them, I came up with this process, which I didn't come up with, but, I re-envisioned many things that I had learned along the way and just decided to call it creative heart process. And the heart is capitalized because that's what it's about. It's about your heart and being able to resolve the fear and begin to listen consciously to what your heart wishes, what it needs actually in this life, this week, this hour, this moment. And so I came up with a cute little, acronym, HEART. So this heart process, and we'll just look at these briefly and then talk about them a little more. Hold a vision of a limitless life. Embrace fearlessness. Acknowledge our essential beliefs and behaviors. Recognize which ones serve us best and which ones limit our freedom. And trust that changing our limiting patterns and uplifting light will uplift life and increase happiness. So live with heart. So let's look at the first one. Hold a vision of a limitless life. All of us, without exception, get pulled in to the day-to-day expectations of our schedules, of our jobs, of our patterns. And when we say to ourselves, I will only ever wake up at 6 a.m., then we are denying ourselves the experience of what it would be like to sleep till 10. If we say, I will always only ever sleep until 10 or later, then we're limiting ourselves to never have the experience of waking up at 6 a.m. And in all honesty, both have great benefits and both may have detriments. So it's best to be flexible and to recognize that there is a portion of time where it's beneficial for you to wake up very early. But there may be a call every once in a while to sleep in. And sleeping in shouldn't be seen as a failure or as, some kind of going back on your word about always waking up at 6 a.m. By looking at life in a way that allows us to have a broader experience, a more diverse experience, we're allowing ourselves to become more resilient. We're allowing ourselves to see that we actually have many more options than what we perceive we have. Simplistically put, the whole waking up thing, you could wake up at 6, 6:30, 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 12, 1. You could sleep all day. That's a lot more option than we're typically willing to give ourselves in any subject matter. Let's look at it from something else. If we say to ourselves, I will only be a doctor. So there's a story. This person, from being a child, they wanted to be a doctor, surgeon specifically. All they talked about, I want to be a surgeon. Went to school, focused on sciences. Went to college, did pre-med. Went to beyond college, into medical school. Worked their whole life. I can only ever be a surgeon. That's what I want to be. There's nothing else out there for me. There's nothing for me except for being a surgeon. They graduate medical school. They have great grades. Their teachers have a great vision of what they could accomplish in this life. And then something happens. And they get into an accident. And they lose the use of one of their hands. And they can no longer be a surgeon. And the first words out of their mouth are, now my life is over. Is it? Of course not. But they don't have a vision of themselves that includes the potential of everything. A limitless life is unlimited. It means that you could be a surgeon. You could also be a teacher. You could also be whatever you wish to be. And if something doesn't work out, then perhaps you missed part of the message, being so hyper-focused on only a single thing. Maybe being a surgeon wasn't what this cosmic consciousness intended for you. Maybe it was having such an in-depth understanding of the human physiology and what surgery can accomplish that you might manifest or realize a few new ideas or a few reevaluated ideas through your wisdom body. It could be anything, you know? But we're not meant to be a singularity. We're meant to be diverse. We're meant to be in a life that has a multitude of experiences. And we can, if we choose, be resilient enough to embrace those experiences without seeing any of them as limiting us, without seeing any of them as putting the reins on our growth, putting the quashing our dreams. We just have to be open to the possibility of it. E for embrace fearlessness. So, I can't even begin to imagine a person who feels that they have invested their entire life into becoming a particular person, a surgeon. I can't even begin to imagine the fear that must be present when they realize that they will not be able to manifest their plan as they saw it. Maybe I can imagine it a bit. I've had those moments myself in my own life where things didn't work out the way that I had intended. But as some of you know, I have a pretty wild imagination. And so I do have a tendency to look for the silver lining. I have a tendency to look and to see, well, if this isn't working, then what might work? Nothing, no action, no amount of effort. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no effort that is useless. All effort has purpose. All work has purpose. So if this work purpose was not what I thought it was, what is it? Let me find out. Let me explore, discover, be curious. Let me look and see the promise that's there. And in that way, we're choosing something else other than fear. We're choosing courageousness, curiosity, a broader vision of the possibilities. Fear, according to many of the great teachers throughout time, is the poison, the greatest poison of the heart. Fear and doubt. Those two married together can kill a person. And they can. And you probably all know somebody who died of a heart attack because their doubt was so deep and their fear was so gripping that their heart couldn't be heard. And I know a few people who passed that way. And they would have acknowledged it too. And as a matter of fact, in their lifetimes, 2 out of 3 of them did. Because we don't understand that the heart has its own intelligence. The heart has cellular intelligence, molecular intelligence, spiritual intelligence, soul intelligence, God intelligence, the intelligence of creativity, the intelligence of curiosity, the intelligence of love. The heart has its own intelligence. And if the heart isn't heard, well, the heart is the hub of the whole body, is it not? So if the heart is not heard, what's going to happen to the systems of the rest of the body? They're going to suffer too. Because the heart is the one that is circulating everything throughout. And if the physical heart, as well as the emotional heart, are not able to express their deepest needs and have them addressed to some degree, then the heart will begin to malfunction, and so will the rest of the body. So it's important, it's even life-saving for each one of us to understand that we need to begin to move away from this concept of being a limited individual and begin to see and experience with great curiosity and joy all of the things, as my daughter would say, all of the things that we are so capable of. It can start with something as simple as being curious about bees. I don't know, came to my mind. Instead of looking at the bee and limiting the life of the bee to one fell swat because you're afraid of being stung by it, there's that fear again, ending a life before its time. Look at the bee and be amazed by it, awed, inspired. See its brilliance, its beauty, its contribution to the environment, to us. You know, without the honeybees, and it's going to be really hard for us to inhabit this world. So let your curiosity start in some place that seems very small. And then let your awareness expand to understanding your own brilliance, your own amazingness, the vastness of your own dreams. Start with something simple. It's not easy to be curious about yourself. We really have ourselves cornered pretty effectively. But if you can start with something like this plant, do the 30-day talking challenge. Yeah? Have a plant and talk to it for 30 days and just see what happens. Don't say anything mean. Don't tell it your problems. Don't complain about life. Say, I love you. You're so beautiful. You're so amazing. I don't understand you at all, but I want to. I want to know why part of you is green and part of you is this really beautiful peach color and part of you is a deeper red. I want to know what you feel. I'm really curious to know about you. 30 days, every day, talk to your plant and learn about it. Then after that 30 days, go to your bathroom mirror and do the same thing to yourself for the next 30 days. So you practice on the plant, and then you go to your bathroom mirror, and every morning before you leave your house, you look in the mirror and you say, I'm really curious about you. I don't know you very well, but I want to. And I'm not going to be afraid of what I find. I'm going to work really hard to just accept you for exactly who you are. Because you really are brilliant. And you shine so beautifully. Green leaves and all. Beautiful skin, hair, eyes, whatever it happens to be. But start the process simply in a way that is non-threatening to you and doesn't increase your fear. And then gradually move that practice to yourself and let that become your morning practice. And just see after 30 days how you feel. Do you feel healthier? Do you feel more vibrant? Are the systems of your body, the heart, the intestines, the stomach, the brain, are they working more effectively? Have you enhanced your relationship to yourself and come closer to realizing your heart's needs and desires? Acknowledge your essential beliefs and behaviors. And this one I just can't even say enough about. It's so important. We have a lot of people in the world who say, I believe in God. I believe in goodness. I believe in love. I believe in unity. But are we really practicing that? Really? We say we believe in it, but in what ways are we not practicing it? Well, I'll be nice to you because I know you and I'm comfortable and I feel safe with you. But those people, I'm not comfortable with them. I'm not safe with them. I don't know them. Then you're not practicing unity because you're not willing to get to know them. You're not willing to open your heart enough to take the chance that the goodness that we claim to believe in really does exist. The fearlessness gets put to the side and the courageousness comes forward, and we dive deep into the waters of unity. And we become radical about it. People sometimes don't like that word radical. But radical just means that you do it. You completely do it. You're completely with it. In this instance, radical is just your application of your belief. And if you believe in love, then be love. If you believe in unity, then be unity. If you believe in the vast potential of people, then see that in every single person that you encounter, including yourself. And don't limit people by saying, well, you could do that, but you really should do that. Instead, ask them what their heart needs. Ask them if they've listened. Ask them if they've talked to their plant for 30 days. Followed by talking to themselves. Coming to know who they really are. And use your communication skills effectively so that you empower them to make their own decisions and to make decisions that are more based in the concept of wholeness and goodness and less based in fear and limitation. So acknowledging our essential beliefs, it's like we talk about the pretty beliefs. We talk about the love, the unity, the community, the limitless expression. But what else do we believe? What about that we're not enough? What about that we are essentially bad? Essentially flawed? And not in that spiritual way that's perfection, but just flawed, like we're just bad, we're flawed, we screw everything up. That's a belief that many people carry about themselves. It's not one that they share, but it is one that they carry. And it manifests in their body in a form of depression and unhappiness that quashes their dreams and their realization of a life of happiness. Other essential beliefs. It matters what language you speak. It matters what color your skin is. It matters how old you are. These things don't matter. How do they matter? They mean nothing. This plant is no more or less intelligent than I am. I can just speak in our language. I don't really know what language she speaks. She speaks plant language. Now, what's the proof that she's as intelligent as I am? Well, I can't do that. I can't even begin to understand that. To be able to manifest this design, this amazing essence of being, that takes intelligence. But I'm intelligent too because I'm manifesting the same thing in my own way, So I can't look at this plant and say, well, you have absolutely no value to me. You go outside and look at a dandelion, the thing that people work so hard to kill in the springtime. Look at the dandelion. Do you know the sacred geometry that exists in that little flower? Could we do that? Could we manifest that? Could we take our body and turn it into 10,000 petals that are perfectly aligned in a perfect mandala, a perfect sacred geometry? The answer is no. We might be able to draw one on paper, but that is the nature of the dandelion. That's its essence. That's what it is. That's intelligence. But we've been enculturated to have the belief that the dandelion is somehow less than we are. That anything out in nature is somehow less than we are. That animals are somehow less than we are. That other people are somehow less than we are. And if we want to come into this practice of living fully and wholly, then we need to really radically rethink that and come to the understanding that all things that exist are amazing, equally amazing. The sunrise is no less amazing than the sunset. One person is no less amazing than another. And one being, whether it's an ant, a bee, a cat, a cow, a tree, a plant, is no less amazing than the other. Because each has its own very specific expression of that divine consciousness. And that is something to behold and to hold space for, and to hold joy in your heart for. Our essential behaviors, too. Sometimes we don't know that some of our behaviors are really harmful to others. The faces that we make. We're like listening to people, and then when we think they're not looking, the eyes roll up in the head, Or we take that breath. You all know that breath, right? When someone's talking, when you're talking to someone and they don't really want to hear what you're saying, and they do that breath, that thing. I don't know. Yeah. But I know when it happens. I can't mimic it right now, but I know when it happens. Those behaviors are so limiting, because to be actively listening to a person and to not be present, that's a dichotomy. You can't do both at the same time. You're either actively listening or you're not. You're either actively present and holding space or you're not. And if you're not willing to actively listen and hold space, then don't remain. That's all. Be honest. This is not the time right now for me to do this. I am not in a place right now. So I'm going to ask you if we can talk a little bit later. Don't think you're holding space when you're not. I had to tell, many of you are aware that there's a lot of health situations happening right now with Ed. And I've made the conscious choice to back away from some of my counseling sessions, because my energy right now is focused very much to my husband. And I found in one of my sessions that it was very challenging for me to concentrate and to hold the space that I would normally be able to hold, because I was thinking about what he needed, what my husband needed. And so I wasn't completely present. And I said to the client, I apologized, and I said, today, right now, in this moment, is not the time for me to do this. So let's either reschedule you, or I'll give you a refund and you can reschedule when your schedule allows. But to continue with the session today would not be honest of me. And he totally understood that. He totally got it. He was like, oh, I don't even know how, He said, it's fine. He said, we'll reschedule. You just let me know when. So, but the other side of me might have thought, well, I can't really do that. That won't look professional. It won't look this. It won't look that. And then I'm not being honest. I'm not being honest about what my heart is telling me. I'm not being honest about what is needed. I'm only telling myself what I want. And when we look only at what we want and not what we need, then our behaviors become incongruous. They become imbalanced. And they become harmful to ourselves and others. I am totally present with you right now, by the way. Absolutely. So in looking and acknowledging our essential beliefs and behaviors, we also need to recognize which ones serve us and which ones don't, and make the conscious choice to change the ones that are not serving us. So if the tendency is to tell little white lies because you think they make you look good, Stop telling them. Be brave. Be courageous. State what you need. People will respect you for it. Your life will get easier because of it. Because you won't have to hold a facade of perfection. You can be who you are and allow people to come support you. Or to just leave you alone. Whatever you ask for. But if you're not honest about it, if I'm not honest about it, then how will anybody know? And then that whole train of reaction comes in. Well, I feel bad because I'm not getting what I need, so they're not good friends. But you never really told them what you need. You only told them what you wanted them to hear. And they're responding and reacting to that, not to what your heart is saying. Because they're your friend, so they're thinking that you're going to tell them the truth. You know? They're not thinking that you feel the need to hide from them. It's true, right? Yes. Did you have a question?
How can you, like, when you're expressing your truth, like if you're, if it's difficult to express your truth and then you express your truth and it's not received in a really positive way, because that tends to then, like, you're kind of getting negative responses, so then you tend to close your heart off a little bit more. So
yeah. It's a great question, and it's a huge dilemma for all people. So there's two things to say to that. There's many things to say to that, but right now there's two things that I'll say. And the first is that what we're talking about right here is not just about us in a singular individual. This is all people. This is yourself, which is the only person that you can work on. And it's also the other person. Every single person has a set of false beliefs and false perceptions, a fear. And when you share something about yourself with them, they're not reacting to what you shared. They're reacting to their fear. And for you or I or anyone here or anyone anywhere to change what you share because you are afraid of the reaction, then you're adopting their work for them because you're trying to make their life a little more cushy. And maybe yours too, because you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear their reaction. We've been studying the Bhagavad Gita every morning. And I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, or the day before. Better to do your own work and fail miserably than to do the work of another and succeed. I can't say how many times these conversations, these talks come back to that verse. It's better to do your own work and fail miserably than to do the work of another and succeed. And every time that we put up a facade for the sake of someone else not getting angry, then we've stolen their work from them. Because their work, whether they know it or not, whether they like it or not, is to accept you for who you are. Just like your work is to accept them. Of course, it's not up to us to say, well, hey, your work is to accept me for who I am. No, that's part of the process. The process is to accept them, where they are, who they are, as they are, without changing who you are, other than how you choose because it brings you closer to who you truly are. Does that make sense? That was a mouthful. Let me say that a little differently. So your job is not to become artificial. Your job is to be real. And to not be caught in a definition of real that is artificial, but to seek out that which truly is real. And the only thing that is truly real is absolute unconditional love. We'd do a whole talk just on that. Yeah. So recognize which ones serve us best and which ones limit our freedom, and then have the courage to change that which needs to change. I do have a tendency to tell little white lies. Well, maybe I won't do that so much anymore. I'll catch myself compassionately and I'll change my tendency. And I'll say my truth a little softly, just so I don't scare myself. Just so I don't scare myself. Yeah, I do have a tendency to emotionally eat. So maybe instead of emotionally eating, I'm going to try to go for a walk instead. I'm going to go stand out in the sun, go for a little bit of a walk, instead of going to food when I get emotional. And I'm going to be compassionate with myself about it. And if I need to have food emotionally, then maybe I'll shift from the chocolate cake to the celery sticks with peanut butter. I'll try. I'll make a change. A little change or a big change, but I'll make a change. If I feel insecure in my relationships, I feel like I don't really matter in my relationships, then I'm going to work on deepening my faith so that I can have faith in the words that the person is sharing that I matter to them. And then I'm going to remember as best I can in any given moment that what's most important is that I'm present to them, no matter what they feel, whether they think I'm special or not. I'm present to their needs, to their thoughts, to their ideas, to their process. And in building a healthy relationship based on presence, then all other things will be fulfilled. Maybe not the way I want them to be fulfilled, but in the way that they need to be fulfilled. So change. But change requires trust, and that's the T in heart. Change requires trust. So you can't just a lot of times when people come into the YTT, especially the commuter program, they'll ask on the first day, do I need to become vegetarian to do this program? And I say, please, no, don't. Now, for some of you, that might sound kind of odd, but here's the thing. This person is about to undergo a program of over 250 intense hours of self-study where their emotions are going to be high and low and high and low and all over the place. Would I be a responsible teacher if I said to them, oh yes, and by the way, you must as of right now uproot your entire nutritional system to meet my expectations of you? No, that's harmful. The average student will move toward vegetarianism without me even saying a word. Because for some unexplainable reason, they become compelled in that direction because they start listening to what their heart's saying, rather than asking out of fear what's expected of them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So trust is something that has to be built up. It can't be that you just jump in and change everything about yourself in one fell swoop, because it won't last. You need to do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and start learning how to cultivate the ability to listen consciously to yourself, to listen consciously to the voice of your heart, to listen consciously to your life, to others and what they're saying. If you listened consciously to some of the relationships that you have, and I know this because I've done the same thing, just by listening consciously, you know whether you should maintain that relationship or not. But your mind, the ego says, but you got to have friends, lots and lots of friends. That way you're popular. So you put up with them, you tolerate them, even though they talk to you like you're garbage. Even though they say things that are critical of so many people, and you walk away from every conversation feeling like you could just die, feeling so devastated. In yoga, we have a statement: right company, wrong company, good company, bad company, good association, bad association. And what we mean by that is, if you hang out with thieves, you'll become a thief. And if that's what you wish to be, that's fine for you. Then be it. But if it's not what you wish to be, then maybe you should find a different crowd to hang out with. The crowd that espouses what you wish to be. You want to be a humanitarian, don't hang out with murderers. You want to be honest, don't hang out with liars. You want to be with sobriety, then don't hang out with people who consume alcohol all the time or who take drugs all the time. Because the reality is, we might think we're strong enough to put that in the right place. But the reality is, we're highly impressionable. And at some point in time, we will let go of our ethic in order to be liked, in order to fit in. We will adopt a false facade in order to avoid discomfort for ourselves and others. But radical rethinking is being who you really are. Setting your own realistic and compassionate boundaries. But boundaries that have flexibility to them, so that people can come and go, experiences can come and go, ideas can come and go, and all you're doing is being present to them, while still holding strong to your own limitless nature and to the fact that the only person you're here to bow down to is yourself and your experience in this life. So don't have a half experience, have a whole experience. Put yourself out there. Love radically, live wholly, trust even when you shouldn't. Because the ultimate goodness is not housed in a human ego. The ultimate goodness is sacred. The ultimate goodness is the God, the goddess, the divinity, whatever you want to call it. That's the ultimate goodness. And that's not housed in the ego. It can't be. It's not possible. The ego is too self-invested. But there is a radiant drop of that goodness that is housed in the heart of everything, of every living being. And in the cellular structure and molecular structure of everything. There is a radiant drop of that goodness. And that's what we're trying to listen to. So if we're going to listen to that, we have to quiet down some other things. And then what we find is that life becomes brilliant, beyond our wildest imagination. Things start to happen. The smallest thing becomes the biggest miracle. And the heart becomes deeply appreciative. And suddenly, we're able to see the silver lining in pretty much everything. And some people will say, you're just looking through rose-colored glasses. Say no. To see only the bad is to be very narrow-minded. To see only what's wrong, that's so easy. Like, you could totally see what's wrong in anything. It's so simple to just stay with that. It's far more challenging, and it requires much more skill to be able to see the beauty and the perfection beyond. Much more. So if you really want to be a radical revolutionary, you want to be an activist, then start seeing all the goodness. Because that is the ultimate radical. That is the ultimate activism. Any thoughts or questions? Ideas? Impressions? Answers? No? Yes, Sam?
Could you finish the word radical again?
Sure. Radical is a full experience. To be radical is to fully experience. It's to be limitless. Yeah, to be limitless. There's lots of other definitions that we can go to for that. But if what we're saying is that we're applying the word radical in relationship to suffering, then radical healing means to embrace the idea that there is no part of you that cannot heal. That in regard to healing, you are limitless. In regard to creating, manifesting your dreams, you're limitless. In regard to our suffering, we're limitless too. Absolutely. So the radicalness of it is to recognize that there's vast potentiality beyond what we can even begin to see. And to maybe hold a space for that, for the surprise of it, you know? Let go of the expectations a little bit. That's why people like being surprised, or they don't, right? So, you know, you come home and your beloved one presents you with a flower. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's so special and unexpected. And your heart feels so warm, you know, and you're like just loving that person. Life gives you a little flower, and you're like, what the hell? That's not what I expected. What's the difference between those two things? Nothing. They were both unexpected. Why does one have to be so amazingly beautiful and the other so not? You know? Can we learn to see the amazingness across the board? Yeah? Does that answer? A little bit?
I just think it's interesting how, like, in most contexts, radical has like a negative connotation.
I know.
Because it's seen as like it's uncontrolled, like it's like
Chaos.
radical, and you know, like who knows what destructive things it could do.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the fear of the unknown. Instead of embracing it, it's seen as it could potentially harm us.
A radical affirmation is an affirmation, let's just say, I am love, is a radical affirmation if you follow through with it. And following through with it, that is a radical lifestyle. That is a radical activism. I am love. Think about that. It means that every person that you don't like right now, you're going to shift that not liking to love. You don't have to run up and give them a hug. You don't have to be like, oh, I love you, man. You know, you don't have to do that. But what you do by being love is you stop harming them. You stop harming them in word, action, or thought. You just stop harming them. And you see and recognize that they're walking a path too, and that their path is not easy, just like your path is not easy. That's love. I am love. I'll hold space for you. Radical affirmation. It's not just about saying it. You got to be it. And you know, but being that is going to cause chaos. Because that person that you don't like has told themselves they don't like you either. And now you're going to stop harming them? You're going to throw their whole world into a tizzy. You know? They're going to be like, I don't know how to communicate with you now. Because every time we communicate, I know what to expect. You know? Like you get the hair on the back of the neck up and you get a little passive aggressive, and then I get a little passive aggressive. And now you're not doing that. So by adopting the radical affirmation as an actual practice in life, what you're really doing also is re-educating other people. And you're re-educating them through love, not through force. And that's beautiful. That is absolutely amazing. It's got so much potential to it. That's also called radical parenting. When you have a child, and instead of telling a child, don't do that, that's bad, you adopt different languaging. And you ask them, why are you doing that? Is there something interesting there? Can you explain to me? Can you share with me? Let's talk about it. And then the child doesn't have the concept of being bad. They have the concept of being curious, of wanting to understand, you know? And that's something that opens up communication. We had somebody in recently who has not a newborn anymore. I think she's about a year old now. And he was saying how when she started talking, like one of the first words was no. And I said, well, if you don't want her to learn how to say no, then stop saying it to her. And he said, what? I said, oh yeah. I said, if you don't want her to learn how to say the word no, then stop saying it to her. But every time she goes to grab this, you're like, no, no, no. She's just telling you what you told her. That's all. So if you want her to learn how to say something else, then don't say that word. Say something else. And he was like, wow. I'm going to have to think about that for a while. What else would I say? I don't know. Maybe redirect. Works for cats. For those cat lovers in the room, you know what I'm saying. You don't tell a cat no. No. They'll just swat at you. Instead, you redirect, You put something else out to get their attention. Yeah. In this instance, you put love. Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas? Kel?
Pertaining to the quote that you mentioned earlier, is it even possible to success at doing another's work?
No. But the ego will tell you differently.
Right.
Yeah. The ego will tell you differently. Yeah. It's a good comment. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So if you're being true to yourself and you're not living the facade, which to me sounds kind of like minding your boundaries as well, how do you reconcile the guilt if that causes someone else suffering? Like if you're being true to yourself.
It's not causing anybody suffering. See, this is the ego. The ego says, oh, well, you have to be responsible for all of it. The reality is that you living a life true to yourself isn't causing anybody suffering. What's causing them suffering is their own decision to not like it. That's what's causing them suffering. The greatest thing that you can do is just continue. Continue living honestly, harmlessly, lovingly, kindly, authentically. Eventually they'll figure it out. But you're not causing them suffering by doing it. What's causing them suffering is their decision, their independent decision to not be comfortable with who you are. That has to do with their fear. It doesn't have to do with what you're doing. It has to do with them saying, wow, I don't know how to play in that playground. I don't know how to push that swing. I don't know how to have that conversation because it's not what they're accustomed to with you. So you can always just say to them, I'm trying on a different part of myself for a while. If you can help me out by supporting that, I would be so appreciative. I'm just trying on a different part of myself for a while. It's not about you. It's about what I feel I need. If you could help me out, people love that. If you could help me out, if you could support that, it would be so meaningful. And then they're like, oh, I want to support you. Of course I do. And then maybe they say, tell me what you're doing and why. Oh, that's a teaching moment. I'm trying to find a more authentic expression of myself. I'm trying to navigate these rough waters that we all navigate. And if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know. So it's not that you're doing it, you're not. It's their choice. And now the courage comes from being able to put away the fear associated with that. Because you also don't want to be callous to people. It's not like, well, it's not my problem, it's your problem. That's not what you're looking for either. What you're looking at is just loving them and understanding that they don't understand. And leaving them be. Don't argue with them. Don't say, well, how come you don't understand me? We've been together for a long time now. We've been friends for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. You should know me by now. Well, no, they shouldn't know you by now. First of all, you're changing. And second of all, they never really knew you to begin with. They only had a bunch of experiences alongside you that you both agreed to be at. And they know those experiences. But they don't really know you. Because if they really knew you, then they wouldn't fight you in trying to know yourself. That's true across the board. I'm going to stop there. So let's sit up nice and tall. Close the eyes. Here's to all of us coming to know all of ourselves. In the light of love and in the light of truth. In the light of curiosity and consciousness. In the light of harmlessness. And in the light of peace. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere find peace, love, light, and happiness. May all beings know their oneness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being here today. As always, such a gift to be able to gather with each and every one of you, to share your energy and your spirit, and to walk this path together. Thank you all. Enjoy the day. There's so much more happening now. Family yoga is going to be in here, I do believe. There's creative arts down the hall. There's chair massage, so be sure to get one before you head out for the day. They're going to be serving brunch if they're not serving it already. Lots to do, lots to enjoy. So thank you. And feel free to take your creative heart process handout with you.
Where would you like to have?
I'll take it. Thank you so much. You're very welcome.
How is Ed doing?
He's holding his own, you know.